Well, most of us assume that if something is seriously wrong with our body, we'll know it. We believe routine checkups catch the big things. We trust that rare genetic conditions are, well, rare, right? Rare enough not to be our problem. But sometimes the body is quietly storing trouble for years. And by the time it announces itself, it's not a whisper, it's an organ failure. If you've ever ignored fatigue, if you've ever been told your labs look okay, but you still felt not so good, and certainly I know people like that, I've had that happen. Or if you've
Mm-hmm.
experienced a sudden health crisis that changed everything, you're not being foolish, you're being human.
And you're being human in this day and age where, we have so much information, but very little time to tend to these little
Yeah.
pieces. But it isn't that people tend to always ignore their health. Like I just mentioned, like you might show up, Wakil, and they're still not going to see anything.
Yeah.
But some of these issues that do come up in our bodies are really hard to find, really hard to diagnose, really hard to pinpoint. Hereditary hemochromatosis is one of the most common genetic disorders in people of Northern European descent, and yet many don't know they have it. It has to do with the iron and absorption of that iron. And this is a story that is not going to be a medical story, and it is going to be a little bit of a medical story, but it is going to be about a story about how fragile someone's life can feel, and yet how magical and resilient that life can turn out to be. So episode is going to bring you not fear, but an awareness. And it's about how survival teaches us to live differently.
Yeah, we're so lucky to meet Michael Tallon in this, and we're going to explore what hereditary hemochromatosis
Psychosis.
is, and how iron overload causes that, causes organ failure. What happens during that in the ICU? He'll talk a little bit about that, and really, most importantly, how someone survives illness against the odds, and what life feels like after being told that you could die soon.
Mike's story, it's retold in his memoir, Incompatible with Life, is not just about medical survival. It's about resilience and love and how a near death experience reshapes the way we live.
Yeah.
Stay with us because this isn't just going to be a drab medical explanation. You're going to come through some twists and turns about someone's actual life and how they can go to the edge and return.
Welcome, friends. I am the Reverend Wakil David Matthews, and we are really looking forward today to our conversation with Michael Tallon. Michael is a writer and educator from the United States who has, since 2004, found fertile soil for the soul in Antigua, Guatemala.
And I am the Reverend Mother Ana Luisa Armendariz. Recently, a good friend of mine introduced me to Michael because we had something in common, death and dying. That was, she's like, you need to meet, you need to talk. And so here we are. Michael, in 2015, previously had an undetected genetic condition known as hereditary hemochromatosis, which caused Michael to fall into rapid simultaneous multi-organ failure, a crisis from which he was not expected to recover. Yet through good medicine, better luck, and great love, Michael managed to both survive and recover. That story is retold in a soon-to-be-published memoir, Incompatible with Life. We'll be including his social media information and where you can find out more about this. But again, Michael, nice to meet you. Great to
Yeah, so
have you.
glad.
It's wonderful to meet you as well. One of the best things about still being compatible with life is that you get to meet new good friends, and what a blessing! What a blessing that is.
Yeah, I was so glad to have you. We usually try to start with just kind of finding out about people's first experience they had, understanding what death was. So do you remember what happened when you first were aware of death?
Hmm.
I mean,
It
maybe
meant it meant good pizza.
okay, good pizza.
Actually, probably my first recollection of death, long before I became ill myself, was when I was a little boy. I was probably in kindergarten or first grade, and my father's father, my paternal grandfather, passed. Uh, and it was, it was almost the, you know, scripted by Hollywood moment of my parents sitting me down and trying to explain to a
Mm,
5-year-old boy that we weren't going to see Pop Pop again,
mm,
and not really understanding that. But the moment that I do remember, it's all kind of, uh, quantized memories of this moment, that moment. But the one that I come to as like a moment when I knew something was wrong was standing and after the wake, we had returned to my family's home, and all the neighbors had come over and put food out. And I remember waiting in line by the break front in the dining room, thinking that I was never going to see my grandfather again. And then Mrs. Casella, who lived a couple of blocks away, brought a homemade pizza, and it was delicious. Uh, and um, and I it's almost like being, and it really is kind of funny because like I'm a 5-year-old boy,
right.
and I'm in the middle of having a wrestle with the infinite about never seeing my Pop Pop again. Um, and then I was really, really, really thankful at pizza.
Right.
Like, and also I also remember that my friend was Mrs. Casella's son, David. He was a classmate of mine, and he was really sweet, but he was always kind of quiet, and he had come over too. And so I guess like my initial relationship with death was shock, awe, and then, but my buddy Dave is here and there's really good pizza and people are together, and and so that may have set the template very, very young for
Yeah.
a rather casual relationship with the Reaper. It's
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
he's going to show up to do delivery at some point, but he might bring good
Yeah.
pizza. So
yeah, yeah.
I
So
love that
she
relationship.
yeah, associate good food and good friends. That's a
yeah,
good
Mhm.
association, yeah.
yeah.
So, Michael, tell us about this template and how the Reaper has shown up sporadically through your life, and
Mm.
where has that brought you? I guess my main question is, how has death impacted the story of your life?
As the central fulcrum and pivot point.
Mm,
Um,
Mhm.
and my, you know, there were the early experiences as my grandparents passed, and then of course as everyone else who gets to have the blessed opportunity of being an aperture of awareness in this universe. You start to see the different stars blink out. Um, but to drive this to the point of that fulcrum moment, it wasn't until I was in the hospital in 2015 and going from, feeling kind of crappy in February of 2015 and then in early March of 2015, uh, being having it made very, very clear to me that I had come to the end.
mm.
The title of the book, which you graciously mentioned earlier, "Incompatible with Life," is how the doctors described me.
Wow.
Uh, when I when I was rushed to the hospital, we found all of this out. We didn't know anything about the underlying genetic condition, the hereditary hemochromatosis, which, to get this out of the way for the viewers, it is an iron processing disorder, and one
Mm.
wonderfully from a narrative structure uh, that that I inherited from a Neanderthal ancestor.
Oh
Uh,
my.
Mm.
the, the the first individual, the first person
Mm.
who had the mutation that led to hereditary hemochromatosis was a Neanderthal woman about 40,000 years ago, and I am her direct lineal descendant, as are my father and mother, and
Mhm.
as are literally billions of people who have lived in the last 40,000 years, many
Mm.
of whom died from this condition, and others who who were eaten by saber-toothed tigers before they ever knew they had it.
Yeah.
Um, and so for me, that's the disease. It's this iron processing disorder that prevents my body from eliminating dietary iron. So where most adult human beings have between 2 and 4 grams of iron in their body at any given time, and it is dispersed largely through the hemoglobin, through it's stored in the spleen, it's stored in the bone marrow. Uh, but for me, I couldn't get rid of any of it, and so my body
Ah,
started to place it in other areas of my body, which included my heart, which gave me heart disease, my pancreas, which gave me diabetes, my liver, which gave me liver cirrhosis, my joints, which gave me joint disorders, and my
ah,
glandular system, which is the primary impact of the glandular disorders for me has been an elimination of my ability to produce testosterone. And
mhm,
so, one of the treatments for this condition, to deal with all of the complexities of it, is that I'm on hormone replacement therapy and have been for 11 years.
mm,
Uh, so that's the way the disease works. And when I was rushed to the hospital, we had already determined that I had diabetes. That was the first thing they diagnosed when I went to a doctor in Guatemala. I then went home to the United States and was further diagnosed with liver cirrhosis. The liver cirrhosis was so bad that my hepatologist, who I had just met at that time, said the first thing we need to do is make sure that we lower the blood pressure in your liver because you were in danger of having a rupture in something called your portal vein.
oh, jeez.
So, without knowing anything about the glandular disorder or the heart disease or the genetic condition at the heart, he just knew that my portal vein might rupture. So, he gave me a beta blocker to lower my blood pressure, not knowing I was already in heart failure. Uh,
Jeez.
Mhm.
and so he said, he literally was, take this pill before you go to bed tonight, and let us know how it goes. And I took the pill, and 5 minutes later, I collapsed onto the bed, and felt for the first time my life leaving, uh, my, my life leaving my body, or my body leaving this world, or my spirit. I mean, it was
Miss
and fortunately, my mom, through the magic of moms and sons, uh, I was staying at my parents' apartment at the time in New York, and though they were asleep across the apartment, my mom sensed that something was wrong, and she had been a nurse in her career, and
wow.
so she came into the came
Huh.
into the guest room where I was staying. I had returned to the States to receive treatment, to try and figure out what was wrong. And she and my father then did initial first aid, lifting my feet up onto a pile of blankets and, trying to encourage blood to my brain and my heart, called the EMTs. And I was rushed to the hospital. And when I arrived in the hospital, they did, I think it was an echocardiogram, and determined that something called my ejection fraction, which is the amount of blood that leaves your heart on any given beat, which should be 55 to 60% of the total amount of volume of blood that's in your heart. I was down to 10%, which is also known as cardiogenic shock. And months later, when I talked to my cardiologist about this stuff, she said, "Yeah, when we met, your heart wasn't really beating; it was, in her words, just sort of quivering."
Wow.
Uh, and so it was right around then that I had that my first experiences with understanding that that living was a terminal process, and undeniably so. And I've actually, in the book, there's a chapter that I wrote about it that relies on my not imperfect understanding of Spanish, but the chapter is called "Saber a conocer." And saber y conocer are verbs that both mean to know, and yet they have very, very different contextual meanings. And to know in the saber construction is to know informationally, and to know in the conocer construction is more of an intimate knowledge.
Mm,
And when I was in the hospital over the month or so that I was there in 2015, my understanding of my mortality transitioned from the one that we're all given just by being around in this universe, like, yeah, things die, to being a conocer understanding, which is,
Mhm.
uh, I am not getting out of this alive.
yeah,
Uh,
exactly. Yeah.
and and that is with me quite literally now. It is never gone from my mind.
Yeah. Yeah.
The memento mori has become an integral part of my understanding, which is why I'd say it's kind of the pivot point around which all of my understanding of my existence turns.
Yeah, yeah, great. Well, and maybe you could talk a little more about the book itself or your work now that what that has um, engendered in your life as far as what you're doing with that pivot point that said. I mean, wow, you learned a lot more about medical terms than people normally would like to learn, right? And
Mhm.
so
Mhm.
you learned a lot about what was going on in your body, and
Oh, I
probably more
sure
than
did.
you ever wanted to know. Um, and but then from that, what has
Yeah.
what has grown from that?
It's a couple of interesting questions, and I'll try and parse them out a little bit and separate them. Uh, Coming back to the work itself, but I want to start with with the learning of more medical terms, because in a way it's deeply interwoven with all of the rest of it. When I was in the hospital, and was coming to terms with the fact that this was probably not a place I was going to be leaving alive, I I mean, when you know you're going and you know you're going soon, I think that perhaps there are two paths that diverge in that yellowed wood, but they are very, very different paths, and is one of them is resentment, anger, fear, and
Mhm.
the other is holy shit, I've only got maybe
Mhm.
another night
Hmm.
or another week, and yet, my God, Dr. Naya, my cardiologist, is a beautiful person, and I want to get to know her. And my God, the nurse that comes in here in the evening, who watches Korean dramas at night to ease her mind, and who has problems with her
Mhm.
boyfriend and wants to talk about that all the time. I really want to know about that stuff. And part of the way that I was able to both hold on to and embrace whatever was left is I needed to be able to talk to these people. Uh, and these people
Mhm.
were, these people had spent dozens of years becoming specialists in their field. And I only had, maybe a couple of days in which to cram, but cram I did. I mean, I did a deep dive into the genetic history, and the medical history, and trying to understand all of the biochemistry, which I did with some success as a layman. Uh, but it was wanting to be able to have that conversation, or wanting to be able to have any conversation, that
Right.
drove that.
Mhm.
And the work itself, the writing that has come out of it is one. I'm a writer. It's the way that I express myself artistically in this world. Uh, and as I've noted to many friends before, the absolute best thing about almost dying is the almost part. Uh,
Right?
but the second best thing, if you're a writer, is it finally gives you a story a story to tell.
Yeah.
And I and it and the structured nature of writing long form. It took me several years to write the memoir, the memoir basically covers from the beginning of the crisis. It actually starts with me taking the Natalol, the beta
Mm.
blocker, and collapsing on the bed, and then it traverses over the course of 1 year of recovery, ending, to tease this a little bit, ending in a sensory deprivation tank on my birthday that year, at the end of that year, where I kind of was able to contextualize a lot of the things that had been happening internally,
Mhm.
and to understand what was going on in my mind as I was dying, and discovering that it was very, very like transcendental meditation.
Mm.
Uh,
Mhm. Huh.
so, but being able the work itself developed in the years after I recovered as a full exploration, or as full an exploration as I'm capable of doing, of the physical, emotional, social, spiritual, and psychological aspects of coming to terms with one's mortality.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Mhm. Yeah, that makes sense, of course. I love that.
Yeah, and And it's such a gift too. I'm going to say, like,
Yeah.
people who have these moments and have the time to, stay compatible with life, it's such a gift. Like,
Yeah.
it's so like wonderful, right?
Yeah.
So, what are some of the challenges that you are meeting these days as now compatible with life and writing the story? And yeah.
Yeah. Or even
I
in the
mean,
creation of it in the first place.
I mean, okay, I'll tell you this. So this is a it's a it's a quick story about something that happened shortly after I got out of the hospital, but it really kind of resonates still to this day. So like, how is this all of this impacting me now? And like, I remember I was walking home from the gym about 2 months after I got out of the hospital. I had just gotten strong enough again to like walk outside of the apartment. And the gym was a block away from my parents' apartment. And incidentally, for musicologists out there, the gym where I went is the McBurney Y, which is the YMCA from that song. Uh, and I was walking home, and I don't know, a friend wasn't had trouble with a friend. They weren't going to be able to meet me for dinner, and it was really important this was going to happen, and all of this. And I remember stopping I had to stop on my walk home just to rest. And I remember like looking up at the sky and saying, Jesus, why can't I catch a fucking break? And then I went, oh, I did. I caught the biggest break that anyone could ever catch. And I'm here.
Yeah.
I'm here to be frustrated. And
Ah.
so and that experience remains and resonates. It's like,
Mhm.
Yeah.
I mean,
To
I
gratitude.
it's gratitude. I'm
Mhm.
here. Yes,
Yeah.
I'm
Mhm.
here, and more people that I know. One of my best friends died a couple of weeks ago. I just got a message
Mhm.
from my best friend from high school that his daughter, 25 years old, died suddenly in her sleep a couple of weeks ago. And
Yeah.
and well, this world can be very challenging. My father died in the past year and a half. Uh, it's also like I'm here. I get to experience the sadness, and the
Mhm.
sadness is instructive, and the sadness and the grief gives you perhaps the most gentle of all places with which to interact with the other people in this world who are also always experiencing grief.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And through that interweaving of souls and grief, the resultant product of that is, oh, well, at least we're not alone. And
Yeah.
once you get to at least we're not
Yeah.
alone, then you can start to reach again towards the light. And
Mhm.
so
Mhm. Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
Yeah. And
What a
that's
gift.
yeah. And again, this is why, what we're here for is to just make sure
Mhm.
more and more people can be comfortable with that and find that gift by being able to talk
Mhm.
about this stuff. So thank you.
funny.
That's a
When I was finally pretty sure that I was going to die of something else, or at least if I was going to die from the many complications of hemochromatosis, it wasn't going to happen by next Thursday. Uh, when when I started to realize that I was actually going to be okay, uh, it it allowed for that gratitude to rise up, but also it it indicated that there was some responsibility that you got to do something with
Mhm.
this.
right.
Mhm.
And to me, that thing you have to do is always reaching out and connecting with other human beings.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is That's what it is.
Hmm.
Yeah. That's really right.
That's where the flame is.
Yeah. Yeah. So important. That's what we have. That's our work every day.
Yeah.
How do we reach out and touch each other? Yeah. Is there anything as you've gone through this now, you've lived this from 2015 on, and is there anything that still feels scary or frightens you about your own
Oh yeah, oh yeah,
mortality?
Mm.
yeah. Absolutely. Um, there is. I ended up not using this chapter title in the book, but it's a useful metaphor. There's an anteroom to death. there's a foyer, uh, and it's a place, at least my experiences of it the first time around, and I'm hoping my experiences of it the second, third, fourth, fifth, and 15th time around, I'm so lucky, that once once you are once you are led by fate, accident, or biochemistry to the room from which there is only one exit, unless
Mhm.
you get a reprieve.
Mhm.
Uh, it's a calming place. It's
Mhm.
a it's a I mean, I remember specifically this one moment when I was sort of at my most abstracted point. Also relevant to this is part of the treatment for the main treatment for hemochromatosis is bloodletting. Uh, and so while I was in the hospital, over the course of 3 days, they removed 40% of the blood from my body. Which, if you've ever felt the exhaustion of giving half a pint, or, a pint of blood or whatever, 500 milliliters of blood in a blood donation, you do that 7 times in 3 days, and you get pretty abstracted.
Yeah.
Uh, but when I was when I was in that when I was in that space, uh, the the interior world changes significantly,
Mhm.
and it's almost as if there is an antecedent ego death before a death of spirit.
Yeah.
The self starts to, or at least my experience was, the self starts to dissipate, and you get a very, very different perspective. And I remember specifically having this image that I was 48 years old at the time. I'm 58 now. I'll be 59 next week. I was 48 years old, and I had this image in my mind of being in space, in space time, and being on this incredibly long, almost infinitely long road, and looking back in one direction. I can see it now very clearly. I could see back to the Big Bang, and that was 13.7 billion years ago. And turning around towards the eventual heat death of the universe is at least another 40 billion years in that direction. And thinking to myself, 48, 84, it's insignificant. It really doesn't matter.
Right.
And to get this view and to get a sense of the long continuation of this existence, and the fact that my blip is 48 years next to 84 doesn't really matter. And so that place in that antechamber of death, where you start to get those perspectives on the totality, is a very calming, welcoming place. And I remember having a conversation with my older brother, uh, as he visited me in the hospital, and saying, like, I know I'm probably not getting out of this. Make sure everybody knows I'm okay, and that I'm not afraid. I've had a wonderful life, and it doesn't mean I'm giving up, but I feel an extraordinary, which is another thing I'll come back to in a second. So that place is really comfortable. But the question was, what about the discomfort with death and mortality? And that is most definitely still there.
Yeah.
I know, or I hope, my experience before suggests that eventually I will end up in that ante room again. And it is one that I regretted leaving when I
Mhm.
got better,
Mhm.
because it was such a nice place to be.
Yeah.
But
Mhm.
the process of falling from a state of health and vitality to that final step before you die is, uh I lament it already. I mean, I
Yeah.
know it will happen, and I organize my life now around maintaining the health of my physical body,
Mhm.
uh, but it's with an understanding that, I'm 58 years old. My VO2 max is over 50. I am, I am riding my bicycle at speed for at least an hour or 2 hours a day. I'm in the best damn shape of my life. Uh, and yet it's all done with an understanding that you gotta beat your wings to fly higher and higher and higher and higher, knowing that eventually you're going to lose the updraft.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the more that you struggle, with joy in creating that lift means the longer your descent on the other side, depending upon, what,
Mhm.
depending on what it is that's
Yeah.
finally going to take you out. And also, I know that is a process. The gaining of altitude is a process that is entirely filled with joy, because it means that the more I work now, the more I get to experience the fundamental truth of existence, uh, which I can nutshell pretty easily for myself. Uh, but it is about human connection. I work hard so that I can love,
Mm.
Huh.
uh, and and I hope that I'm going to be able, when ultimately that that the top of the parabolic arch is reached and I start descending down, well, I know that I will lament getting weaker, and I know that I will be pained to lose the strength that I have now to do the work that I do now. But ultimately, I will lack the ability, if I don't get hit by a bus, if it is disease that takes me away, that I will lack the ability once again to stand
Mm. Mhm.
and to bathe myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, and hopefully the joy that is the joy and the feeling of interconnectedness that animates the process on the upswing will be there, uh, to lend it grace on the backside
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
well. So I fear the descent, but I also know it's unavoidable, and so I attempt to prepare for it by focusing on that which is most important. Which,
Yeah.
again, I can nutshell, and I think I will right now. The fundamental truth, that I learned through this whole process is, that the only goddamn thing that matters is love. Uh, and that the purpose of existence, and I can't say everybody in the world feels the same, but this is what it means to me. I am here to apprehend, create, and transmit love in its three fundamental wavelengths of truth, beauty, and light.
Mm.
And having had that insight granted to me by having the whole thing shaken so hard that all the bullshit falls out, that's what remains.
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
that is that we are here to apprehend, create, and transmit love in its three fundamental wavelengths of truth, beauty, and light, and that's the whole of the game.
Mhm.
And you have the opportunity to do that. It's what this an old lie. I can't remember if it's from if it's Talmudic, uh, but it's that, on the first day of creation and the last day of Armageddon, the work remains the same.
Yeah. Yeah.
We are here. We are here to love. We are here
Yeah.
to build community. We are here to love, because ultimately the the thing that is alive, I no longer believe is me.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's the thing that is alive is the thing that is, it's like, go for the metaphor just of what it is that we are all using right now to have this conversation. There is an electrical storm going on in each of our brains and in the brain of all of those people who are listening. Uh, but one neuron did not think. One neuron needs another neuron
Mm.
in order to spark that gap. The thought, the existence, is the thing that exists between the neurons, and it's the thing that exists between, the individuals who have the false perception that they are in fact separate from one another.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny that when the words you used to explain this concept of yours reminded me of pretty having been interfaith ministers. We've studied so many different faiths, and
Mhm.
you can kind of boil down every faith in the world to that exact same
Mhm. Mhm.
um, understanding that it's love.
Mhm.
It's all
Mhm.
about finding a way
Mm-hmm.
to share love and to be with each other and to find that connection. So
Good.
thanks for
I want to share something with you then. I think for me anyway, I have settled upon where biologically and evolutionarily why we feel impelled towards love and
mm.
by love. And I think it goes back to the beginning of life on the planet, if not the universe. When I was at my sickest, when they had taken all of that blood out of my body and I was abstracted as hell and was not expected to make it through the night or the week, uh, I decided that I really wanted to meet that Neanderthal ancestor, who was the founder of my hemochromatite line, and I was already experiencing some pretty profound hallucinations just from the blood loss and from the fact that I was dying, and the what do they call them? Terminal delusions. I was experiencing those.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, and I decided that I was going to travel back in time and I was going to go meet my great, 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 great Neanderthal grandmother. And I did. And inside an interior space, I found her as she was walking through a storm when she was alive. Her hemochromatosis was, in fact, a positive adaptation because it allowed her and her descendants, me included, to store iron in times of protein scarcity, which is super important during an ice age. And I remember meeting her and encouraging her to fight through that storm because at that point, she was, if she died in that storm, it meant that none of her children would exist. And I was one of them, as was my father, as was my mother, as was my grandfather, as was my grandmother. All of us going back in a line 40,000 years would be blown from the pages of the book of life in a single breath. And so I stayed with her in that storm, encouraging her to persevere. And she did. And after that, I had a realization that, wait a minute, if I'm connected to her through this direct lineal connection and I can visit her, I'm connected to all of her ancestors as well. And so I, in this abstracted interior space, went back through the lines from Neanderthal to Homo habilis to, little four-legged creatures to a fish out of the water, walking back into the water, all the way back. And I had this orchestral image at the end of all of that of a pre-biologic Earth. And I know enough from my studies to understand roughly what the Earth looked like nearly 4 billion years ago before the moment of abiogenesis. And if the Miller-Urey experiments are correct, the way that that moment of abiogenesis happened on this planet was through the introduction of an incredible blast of energy, of a lightning strike or something massive that catalyzed these two little protein changes in the primordial soup into a few amino acids that are the proto building blocks of life. And I had this moment, this image in my mind of in this little pool of water, just off a promontory. I pictured it sort of off of the coast of Ireland, where my people come from, in the, in this pre-biologic Earth, and the lightning zaps and these two little amino acids arise in the primordial soup, and one of them, with his little amino acid eyes or her little amino acid eyes, looks at the other one and goes,
Come on.
and they came together for what I perceived as an amino acid kiss. And that amino acid kiss laid the first structures that became the first link in a chain of DNA that is still existent today, and of which you and I and all of the living creatures of the world are mutual and equal descendants. And I think that human beings, over the course of the development of our psyches and our intellectual capacities, we still have that drive. We still have that natural drive to look at one another's and go, "What do you think?" And I think that what we perceive as love, that thing that unifies us, is actually just our evolutionary adaptation to that ancient biochemical drive towards understanding that if this is going to be something more, it needs to be done together.
Hmm.
Yep. Yep. I like that. That's a great way of looking at it. I remember having something similar to that at one point where I felt like I went all the way back to floating around in space, right? and uh, and having this moment of the the uh, the thing that changed was fear and the need for each other, like that
Hmm.
this fear of not having each other. Anyway, that yeah, but thank you. I love that. I can sort of visualize that myself. Um, yeah, I think we've really covered most everything already. Anyway, so is there anything else that? Well, I would like to know if there's anything you do specifically to keep yourself resourced when things get overwhelming. And then anything else you think that we should make sure we get to hear from you before we're done, and then we'd want to read your poem.
Oh, well, thank you. Um, it's one of the best things about being in that ante room of death. Uh, when you know you're going, is that all the other bullshit fades. Like
Mhm.
like you really don't care anymore. The world is going to have to deal with Donald Trump. You're no longer, you're out. Uh, and the unpaid bills and what's going to happen, all that stuff starts to fade away. But of course, when you get better, all that stuff comes back. Um, and you do have to deal with the neighbor who's making too much noise, or the friend who misunderstood a statement, or the all of that stuff. And I guess I try and stay resourced. I try and stay ahead of that stuff, simply by returning the to being deeply grateful that I get a chance to be here to wrestle with this shit.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and also understanding that, like, absolutely everyone, including the neighbor across the street who's making noise, or whatever it is, that's like, everybody else is struggling too.
Yeah, yeah,
And
Hmm.
they're all wrestling with whatever pains and miseries are going on in their life. And you're only here for a little bit of time, and you can probably help to make that stuff better for them
yeah,
as
Hmm.
yeah,
well.
yeah. That's a choice, right? Yeah, it's a choice we can make to be upset about it or to take care of ourselves, take care of others. Yeah. Well, thank you. That's a really good answer to that, and one that I think really applies. Um, is there anything else, I guess, before we go to the poem that you wish we'd asked?
No, I mean, it's actually, I mean, I think you guys are making good work and good art out of this, by sharing it. And so, that these conversations can, in fact, go on for far longer than there's the attention span of somebody who's in the middle of their commute listening to a podcast.
That's right.
Uh,
That's right. Yeah,
and so
and hopefully they will.
the only thing I'd add is that if you want to revisit these conversations again sometime in the future, I hopefully will still be here to have the conversation. So
Right.
more than happy to come back and dive into another part of this, because I think in reality we've only it's just the nature of this stuff. A 40-minute or an hour-long conversation is only going to get you about 5% of the way in. So,
Yeah, yeah. There's lots to talk about, which is what we encourage everybody to begin doing. Have these
That's right.
conversations with each other. Well, great. You sent us a poem. Do you want to read it yourself, or you want one of us to read it?
I'll read this poem, but I tell you a quick story about where it came from. Uh, I wrote this poem a long, 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 long time ago. I had been driving cross country, and I went to the Grand Canyon, and I went to the south rim of the Grand Canyon, and I saw what everybody else sees, but it. I wanted to camp. on the edge of the canyon. And there was no place to do that. So I drove around to the North Rim, which is a long damn drive. And I couldn't find any place there. And I was running out of gas. I stopped at this local gas station and I said to a local guy, I'm like, hey, is there any place that I could just throw a bedroll down on the edge of the cliff? And he went, yeah, there is. He says, you take that dirt road and you drive up there about 5 miles. And he kind of described it to me. And I followed the directions and I ended up on a place just outside of the park, but on the canyon looking out to the east over the plains.
Mm.
Uh, and I had a 6-pack of beer and my notebook. And as the evening settled in, I decided to write a poem. And what's wonderful is on the little promontory where I was camped, there was this huge burn mark on the ground. And I thought someone must have had a campfire here before, but I didn't see any charred wood or anything. And then as the night went on, a storm started moving in across the plains with lightning strikes all over. I was like, oh, that's what this is. That's so fortunately, the storm never made it to me, but it just gave me a wonderful light show. And I wrote this poem, which I've titled Heavenly Light. And it is, do campfires burn in heaven, Lord? Do ghosts pass whiskey round? Does grub and ground make bed and board? Can you hear the coyote sound? Do saints and holy men still dream while angels take their rest, lying quiet by a stream or raucous lover's breast? Does Jesus sing a lonesome song with Judas on the harp? Can they forgive each other's wrongs together in the dark? 'Cause if they can't, I'm sad to say I won't be stopping by. Death's no too high a price to pay for no fires in the sky. So if heaven's not a campsite, then any price too dear. So by my fires I will abide and choose to bed down here. And as I face my last good night, I'll bank my embers deep. And then I'll go without a fight, for I'll never truly sleep. I'll wake as soon as flowers shoot from my now empty head. And if a tree begins to root, could you truly think me dead? I might become the warming flame of a young man's campsite fire. Admitted that'd be fleeting fame, but is your heaven that much higher? And that's that poem. And
Wow.
the only edit I've made in that poem in the 30 years since I wrote it is in the final stanza I reference an old man's campsite fire because that's what I've become. What I
I saw
wrote,
that.
it was a young man's campsite fire.
Yeah, I did know. I noticed that. Yeah. Thank you. That's. I love that. I read it when you sent it, and I just
Mhm.
think, wow, what a great way to both end this conversation and to just kind of leave that sense of, yeah, if there's no fire, I'm not. I won't be there. So,
I know, no outdoor bedrolls on the
yeah,
edge of a
yeah, that sounds pretty nice to me. Yeah. Well, thank you again, Michael. I really
Thank
appreciate
you,
your time,
Michael,
and we
and
will
your story.
We'll let you know when this is
Right
live,
on.
and we'll be in touch. Thanks, and thanks for
Yes.
spreading the word.
Right on. And thank you very much for the opportunity. And I look forward to any conversations that grow out of this on air or just in private or when y'all come down to Guatemala to say hello.
All right, sounds good.
You'll see me.
Take
Adios.
care. Bye bye.
Adios. What a
Wow.
story.
Yeah, what an incredible story.
It's yeah,
Great
and when
stories.
I great stories, but I really appreciate the, like, near-death experiences from people and how they choose to wander in this world,
Yeah,
after this NDE, right? So
yeah,
and he is all about love. Like
yeah, yeah. He discovered the through that. Oh, he was really as many of the things we've heard at NDEs is where they actually were dead, clinically dead,
mhm,
and they were seeing the light. But he was
mhm.
in the foyer. I love
That's
that
right,
metaphor.
right.
I hadn't really gone into that part yet, but I was in that kind of calm place where I was
Mhm,
realizing that might be where I was headed, and
mhm,
there's only one
mhm.
door out, maybe. And yeah, I love
That's
that
so
idea, that sense, and that from that space, almost like a psychedelic immersion kind of
mhm,
thing, from
mhm,
that place of letting go of the self, we
mhm.
see that really all there is love. Yeah.
Right. No,
Just like,
it
yeah,
really, like, definitely cleansed him of all that ego stuff, right? That's,
yeah,
like, attachments and all. So,
yeah. That's our,
fabulous story.
Yeah, that's what we all try to do is our mysticism.
Mm,
That's
That's
the work
right.
we're all doing.
It's true, right? And
Yeah,
again, to arrive at that moment, people take a lot of different roads. Like
yeah,
it's not just a one thing.
yeah,
So I
exactly.
really appreciate that you're right. Yeah, he's gotten there through his anteroom experience.
Yeah, yeah. Well, another wonderful time. Much love to you.
Yes, much love. Thank
Adios.
you. Adios.
Dying, grief, and loss, conversations about the end of life.
Thank you for joining us today. Thank you to Charles Heaston, the composer of the original music you are listening to now.
And of course, thanks to you, our audience, and all of our amazing guests. Please come back next week for another great episode. Share this with your friends, family, and community. We hope you will subscribe and follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky, and Substack. Each guest's additional information will be found in the podcast notes. And of course, if you have a good end-of-life story to share, please reach out. We are always eager to hear from you.